control the vertigo.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic with your host Mark. Today we are covering The Outer Limits. We're on season 1, episode 15, called The Mice, which I know that I've seen before but I have no memory of, I have to admit. However, it's a very solid episode. I really quite enjoyed it. It first aired on the 6th of January 1964. As I say, episode 15 of season 1, so about halfway through, I'd say. Apparently it was the 19th one in production, but it was aired the 15th. Now, I actually used as a reference, I don't actually talk about it much, and I should. I used as a reference a book called The Outer Limits, The Official Companion by David J. Shaw and Jeffrey Franzen. It's quite hard to get hold of. I had to pay quite a lot of money to get this second-hand copy, but it's usually a very solid reference, and it is a solid reference. However, they don't really like this episode, and I'll explain what they say about it in a bit, but actually I like it a lot. It concerns a group of scientists who are communicating with an alien planet, aliens on another planet, who want to try teleportation. And they've given instructions of how to build the device and stuff like that. And eventually one of their own teleports to Earth. And this alien I really like. It's kind of got human legs. Imagine a jellyfish body, upper body, instead of, a human upper body, with crab-like limbs, two, instead of arms, two sort of large sort of appendages with crab claws at the end, and humanish legs. That's what it looks like, and it's quite an outstanding one. I think it's very interesting design. Apparently, they had to use like a hoist and winch to get it on the stuntman. It was that heavy. And I think it's reused in another episode, but I read that somewhere, but I don't know which episode that is. I'll get to it eventually, I guess. So I really like the creature design. Now, in the book I mentioned, The Outer Limits, The Official Companion, they kind of referred to this episode as a bit stodgy. Some of the dialogue doesn't work. Some of the shots keep getting reused, and it's a kind of a premise they don't really like. I kind of agree about the premise, but the rest of it I don't agree with. Henry Silva is one of the main characters in this, and he's really outstanding. He plays this guy charged with murder first degree homicide, I should say. He killed his sister's abusive husband, apparently. That's what happened. But if they ask a group of criminals if they want to volunteer to take part in these experiments, but no promises that they'll get out. It's just promises that their behaviour will be used in consideration of parole. Is really that. And what it is, it's to see if this teleportation device works. And the idea is one of these aliens who are called chromoites will teleport to Earth, and a human will teleport to the planet Chromo. So they've been asked to volunteer for that. Now, the first thing that happens is the chromoite, who is apparently no one significant, gets teleported to the planet, to Earth, and is allowed to roam the grounds but not leave. Now, this alien is doing some weird stuff, but but no one's really paying attention to it. Bizarrely, they're more concerned with getting the teleporter ready so that they can send this guy who's called Chico, I believe. Chino Rivera. Now Henry Silva delivers a great energetic performance as this man. He's by far the most interesting character in it. And he's got a lot to say, and he sort of tells them that if he can escape, he will, and stuff like that. And he talks about going back on his promise to be part of this thingy, and like the doctor's, who's called Calendar, sort of resigns, says, okay, we'll send you. You had a bit of time out of prison, we'll send you back. He goes, no, I'm kidding. We'll do it, and all this. So there's a bit of mind games going on. There's also that female doctor called Julia Harrison, played by a black lady. It was very interesting. This episode had a sort of a black actress, an actor, portraying someone who their race isn't mentioned. They're portrayed as, one of the team. And neither her gender nor her sort of race seemed to factor in. This was quite refreshing. Agenda maybe a little, because there's kind of a bit of a love story kind of element. Not a love story. She's got a crush on Henry Silva's character, and she's kind of wants to give him the benefit of the doubt. Whereas Dr. Calendar doubts him every time. Someone gets murdered and they immediately suspect him, not this weird alien that's walking around. Meanwhile, the alien is kind of walking through the woods, and kind of there's this weird growth on the pond, which again no one really pays any attention to. The alien seems to be sort of feeding them. And indeed, at one point, Chino refers to it as a garbage eater, and no one picks it up. Like he's witnessed something that no one's picked up. So, anyway, there's lots of to-ing and fro-in. There's a fair build-up of tension in the second half, as is often the case with the Outer Limits, where it's kind of a monster rampant kind of mode. But it turns out this Chromoite is not a monster rampant. Turns out he's an eminent scientist from Planet Chromo, who we find out their food stuff is diminishing. This weird pond scum thing, which is weird because it seems to grow super easy. And really, they're only there to try and experiment of alternative food sources. And the calendar actually says near the end, why wouldn't you just ask? Why the deception? I don't understand. But the Chromoites are like, yeah, we'll leave you alone. We'll not bother you. But interestingly, they're looking for food stuff. At one point, a guard accidentally gets knocked in the teleporter and disappears. So presumably gets teleported to Chromo. Never gets mentioned or comes back. So, they're looking for food. What's going on there? Yeah, it's a bit suspicious. It's well shot. I have to say there's some great shots in here. There is a bit of reuse of some of the scene, some of the shots. I will admit that. But actually, I thought this was a pretty punchy, good episode. Really elevated, I think, by Henry Silva's performance and the role that was written for him. Stefano had real problems with this one. He had to rewrite it pretty much because the original script and second and rewrite really wasn't up to scratch. It was way too wordy, and there's lots of examples of that in the official companion. I think this might be a case where their researchers led them to, this isn't a good episode, instead of perhaps just watching the episode and commenting on that. So I think there's a bit of that. And like I say, the alien's really nice looking. The actress I mentioned was pretty good, Julia Harrison. Apparently she was a stage actress. She didn't do much in film or TV. But she was pretty good, and it worked very well. In fact, I thought all of the acting was fairly good in this. The ending, the resolution was a bit desultory. It was, why didn't they just ask? It kind of makes sense. You just ask, right? I think at one point the words "you could have asked," all you had to do was ask, was spoken in kind of a bit of a sort of not disgust but sort of exasperation, really. As I say, I really like the monster in this, but this is all about the just art, just communicate properly. There's a bit of all that. So, and also the Chromoite did murder someone, which is kind of not mentioned again. So there's a few oddities, but I really like this episode. I think it's a solid one. I'm surprised I don't remember it, and I know I've watched it before. I think it's a mid-season thing, maybe. I mean, maybe after the Zanti Misfits, it was not that standout, because Zanti Misfits is a real high point, the one just before this one. So it could be a bit of that. So it could be that. But I thoroughly recommend the mice, I should say, from this season of The Outer Limits. Okay, that's about it from me. But before I ask, before I go, I should say, may I ask, is anybody out there?
I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you. Until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to